Okay, Tyler Crow. So you and I have done our share of videos about Plug Power, and we haven't exactly been kind, if we're being honest. But for reason, this is a business that hasn't exactly generated a whole lot of value for shareholders over its existence. But revenue is growing like crazy, and they just announced something about a week ago where they're talking about growing their revenue 17x by 2030. Tyler, are you ready to have another video talking about Plug Power?
I don't know if my messaging is going to change much, but let's do it.
Way to bury the lead there, pal. No, seriously, it's that I think we have to. We'll get into the details here, and I think as an investor, you always want to take everything from every company with a grain of salt. But the conversation we're going to have is: are these realistic goals that Plug Power is laying out there, and most importantly, can they reach them? And if they reach them, is this a stock worth buying today? I'm Jason Hall. This is The Smattering. This video is sponsored by The Motley Fool. And if you're looking for even more great stock ideas, go to our special link, fool.com/The Smattering. The Motley Fool is going to give you its 10 best stocks to buy right now. Please check out that link after this video. Okay, Tyler, what is Plug Power? Let's start there. What do they do? What are they trying to do? And what's it look like it's going to be worth?
What management says Plug Power is a company that is at the forefront of the hydrogen economy. For the past 20 years or so, they have been building fuel cells. Their primary client for many, many years was forklifts in warehouses, trying to basically replace propane as a kind of an indoor fuel. They built this fuel cell that basically said, look, we can switch out in and out hydrogen fuel cells just as fast as you can, fuel up your propane tank. You won't have any downtime. You won't have any emissions in your warehouse. We'll supply the hydrogen for the fuel cell, and everything will work out great for you. They've had some big companies sign up for orders previously. I will give them credit for growing their revenue through deals like this. Today, they have been transitioning a little bit more towards a broader hydrogen strategy, not just supplying hydrogen fuel cells, but also supplying hydrogen through electrolysis, which is a process that basically splits water to produce hydrogen rather than the old-fashioned way that we used to produce hydrogen, which was called steam reformation of natural gas.
It's so compelling if you're using electricity from solar or wind or even nuclear, some carbon-free source of power. You actually get true green hydrogen, right? Where it becomes a
Right.
green fuel. It doesn't produce carbon emissions or vastly reduce carbon emissions from the process. That's kind of the key to what makes this so compelling.
It was a dirty secret about previous about hydrogen was it all came from natural gas anyways. And so it's like, well, if you're producing it out of natural gas, like what's the big benefit here? So if we can truly make electrolysis from renewable energy a thing and use fuel cells as the way of delivering that energy into power, then that truly is a game-changing technology. It is a game-changing concept to the way that we deliver energy, the way we produce power, how we store power, and how we could decarbonize the economy. It is a story and a message that Plug Power has been diving into recently head on, being like, look, we can do this. We can build the electrolysis. We can produce hydrogen in this green fashion from renewable energy and be this transformative decarbonization mechanism for the world. And we're going to grow super fast and we're going to be super profitable as a result. So that's the message that they have been conveying to the market. Recently, they put out a new management projection. They call it their Plug Symposium. It's basically like a management fireside chat where they get to say all the ambitious things that they're working on. And the big numbers that came out of it, and what investors have been kind of latching onto lately, is basically they said by 2030, they're going to generate $20 billion in revenue compared to management's projection right now for 2023 at $1.2 billion. So we're looking at, you said it right, 17x revenue compared to where they are right now.
Right, right.
And so
17x revenue increase in seven years.
7 years. That means they're going to grow their revenue 50% annually for the next 7 years. There's no other way to say it other than 50% compounded for the next 7 years is an extremely ambitious goal. On top of that, management's also projecting by 2030, they are going to have a gross margin of 35%. If gross margins are that high, that would likely make the company a rather profitable one. A company that gets gross margins of 35%, unless you're like really screwing things up on your operating costs, you're probably going to be making a decent profit, which would be a huge turnaround for a company that right now has a negative gross margin. Over the past 12 months,
It's around
they have
negative
generated
31%. You still have all of your operating costs to cover as well, right?
your
So
facilities costs, your overhead,
marketing, your
whatever
sales, general administrative, your accounting department,
administration.
like all of those, you still have all of that stuff left over to do, right? So we're not even talking about operating margin. We're talking about gross margin is still very, very negative and has been consistently for quite some time.
Right. And this is where I think we're going to make the hard pivot in terms of Plug Power, because we've said what management says they're going to do. This is the important part that I don't think you and I cannot emphasize enough when it comes to Plug Power. Management has been making promises for years that they are going to be profitable. You and I have been doing this for 10 years, and whole 10 years they've been saying that 2-3 years out, this is exactly how it's going to happen.
I want to show investors something here. This is a company that's been around since the 1990s, the late 90s, right? And the stock price over its entire history has generated 94% in losses. They have set these expectations for some great future that they've never lived up to. The managements you trust is the one that have set the expectations and then they've delivered, and then they've done it again and again and again, right? So I'm gonna second what you said and tell investors with Plug Power, there is a very realistic chance that they could hit the $20 billion number, because I do believe that we are at a really interesting point with hydrogen, particularly green hydrogen. Renewable costs have come down so much, it makes it competitive from a cost perspective. And so many businesses, so many countries have carbon reduction goals that a ton of money is going to flow into this sort of technology, and there's going to be big demand for the product on the other side. I think Plug is probably going to have some role in that, and that $20 billion is not outlandish. The issue is they've never shown any of that revenue growth to generate economic returns. As much as they've grown the revenue in the past, it's never generated returns. Okay, it's just generated more losses. Tell a great story, issue more stock, watch, rinse, and repeat.
Returns for investors are very different from stock price movements.
Right.
Let's really
Right.
emphasize that too.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure there's somebody a few years ago that bought Plug Power stock that is immensely happy because they bought it when it was super cheap and it's gone through a couple of these big price spikes.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is fantastic. Of course this company's going to do this. But returns on the business are very different than stock price changes. And in the very, very long term, to go old codgery Ben Graham on you, the stock price is a voting machine. The business is a weighing machine. And the weights have said over the years that this company has not been able to make a return on what they do. And until they show with definitive evidence in their financial statements that they can generate a return, it's just a story.